What's up, everybody? This is the Digital World Podcast, and I was able to watch the full 3 hour interview today with our esteemed doctor over here and Mr. Joe. And there's this video might be hard to tiptoe around, so I'm just gonna get straight to the point. This is a pretty long article. But essentially, it talks about the pestilence that's going on, this medication right here, and the whole idea of what's happening with let's call it population formation hypnosis. And it's a great interview. I actually took a lot of notes while watching because there's some things I want to look up. But I'll scroll down and talk about different things that this article highlights while also giving some of my input on what I thought about some of these topics. But a lot of it are things I'm curious and interested in finding out more about. So without further ado, let's start here. So first of all, this esteemed doctor, I'm not going to be mentioning his name because the overlords of the interwebs are here and they're censoring. And I think it's valuable to get this information out to you. So bear with me as I use these code words that I'm sure you'll put two and two together. So he was removed from his LinkedIn and Twitter for a lot of the stuff that he's been exposing, right? And Joe Rogan brought up the point if he is being censored and taken down, being one of the people that was instrumental in patenting the technology of these mRNA inoculations. If that person's being censored and he is the most reputable and the most knowledgeable person that has no financial incentive, according to him, he has no financial incentive to come out and talk about this technology and talk about the evils and the destruction that it's causing. And full disclaimer, he has received 2 jabs. Okay? So it's not like he hasn't taken it. He's taken the medicine. And he's out here not promoting, but exposing a lot of what's happening. And one of the points he argues is that informed consent is not happening. It's being actively blocked. And that people are not being told the full risks. They're not the full risks are not being disclosed to the public. And this is a real issue. And this esteemed doctor, got banned off of LinkedIn because he posted about the conflict of interest between the CEO of Reuters being on the board of, the pharma companies that starts with a P. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. Okay? And he was removed. He did receive an apology and was reinstated. But I believe there was something else he posted and he was removed again, if I'm not mistaken. So, here it says that Twitter, let's see. Okay, so he talks about his removal from these platforms, and then Brett Weinstein, I think it's Weinstein or Weinstein, however it's pronounced. He says that this platform, the social media platform, is in no position to judge the esteemed doctor, especially because he invented this technology. And if you see that big tech and big pharma are censoring this perspective, the opposing perspective, especially from an esteemed doctor who's an inventor of this technology. They're silencing the voice of not just him, but all the people that are in opposition, or at least do not agree with what's happening. Yeah, maybe they're not against the medicine, but they're against the mandates that are being forced, and the sheer fact that all the risks are not being disclosed. And Brett says this censorship of experts must not stand. It should not be happening. And then he talks about a piece by The Atlantic, which was funded by Facebook and J&J, in which they try to bring him down. A lot of people that try to tarnish his reputation refer back to this hit piece. Okay? And so this initiative right here is by Facebook, and this right here is associated with J&J. Okay? And we go further down, and he says, one point I want to emphasize is when he was being asked about why he was doing this, right? The esteemed doctor, when he was being interviewed by this, whoever was doing this hit piece, the esteemed doctor kept saying, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. He wants to expose the corruption. And this one was probably one of the biggest points of emphasis for me. Was he's talking about how everything that he's been trained to do in his 30 plus years of experience, all the bioethics that he's been trained on, are blatantly disregarded now in this current crisis. And he calls the government lawless. And they have disregarded the federal common rule. And he says explicitly, I'm not going to play these videos, but if you guys want to come look at, this article, you're more than welcome to. I'd highly recommend watching the whole thing. And he says that these mandates are of an experimental medicine, and it's explicitly illegal, and it's inconsistent with this code and this report right here. And the fact that these governments don't care, right? So when you look at all these pieces, right? When you're an esteemed doctor like him and you're looking at all the confusion and nonsensical things that are happening, you come to question what is happening. Then they move on to talk about what happens in province in India. Okay? And, that was an interesting topic. You guys can watch that. But the fact that early treatment, he made this point very clearly, that he believes that 500,000 of deaths that have happened in the U.S. are due to the blocking of early treatment for the turbulent scariant that is roaming in the air. And if there's been about 800,000 deaths so far in the U.S. So he believes that 500,000 could have been prevented through early treatment. And that's a massive statement. Huge. And then he tells Mr. Joe about following the money, the rabbit trail in regards to that. And he says that, I found this interesting and something I wanted to investigate more, but he says that people that have had let's see, how can I call this? Okay, look where I'm highlighting in my screen. Okay. People that have had this, right? Let's abbreviate it nature, people that have had nature work, people that have had nature, run its course, have higher risk of a reaction from the medicine if they take it afterwards, which is very interesting. I'm curious to see the science behind that, because I know during this interview they talked about the proteins, right? And where the protein can attach to the cell, and how that could differ from the medicines and from nature actually doing it on its own. So when you get it from nature and let it run its course, the proteins in which it's hard to talk in code sometimes because you can't, I want to say the specific term. Nevertheless, let's to briefly say, or to kind of see, now I'm losing you guys. So all I'm gonna say is I thought this was a very interesting thought and statement here. Very interesting and something I want to look into. And then they talk more about other things, and I thought this was very interesting about this population formation of hypnosis, let's say, that I think is an interesting phenomenon that's occurring. And they talk about how the population in Germany was very intelligent. And how come they went mad? They totally lost it. And he explains how that happens through this phenomena up here, this term. And then he points out that Reuters, right, are the fact checkers for Twitter. And they are obviously tied to the company that starts with a P. So there you have it. And I think that's a good summary. I think you guys should definitely take a listen. Good information. It's important to stay informed. So, without further ado, this is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.